Good afternoon from this land, from our homeland, Kuwait, the land of love, friendship, and peace, from the land that has always been a launching pad for the oppressed, a balm to heal the wounds of the afflicted, and a platform for truth wherever it may be. Today we bid farewell to the month of fasting, which this year came upon us burdened not with thirst and hunger, but with a lump in our throats and a pang that gripped our hearts. Ramadan has passed, and now the sun of Eid rises shyly, carrying within it the takbirs of joy, but a joy wet with tears of supplication and mingled with sighs of hope. We implore Allah Almighty, the Most High, on this blessed day with a pang in our hearts. We wear new clothes while there are those whose homeland groans under the weight of aggression. This year, Eid in Kuwait transcends mere adornments and gatherings with family and loved ones. It is a message of unwavering resilience, the pulse of a nation that refuses to be broken, and a call for solidarity that embodies our shared destiny. Our prayers rise to the heavens this Eid, beseeching Allah to lift the affliction and bring an end to the wars that have wounded hearts and burdened souls. Despite the grim reality and uncertain future, Kuwait remains, as we have always known it, an undistinguishable beacon of hope. Today we instill in our children that the joy of Eid lies in the steadfastness in the face of adversity, unity during times of crisis, awareness in the face of aggression, and the unwavering belief that with hardship comes ease. May Kuwait enjoy continued security and peace, and may our next Eid be one in which wounds heal and faces regain their radiant smiles. And amidst our celebration, we do not forget our steadfast soldiers answering the call of duty during these blessed days. Their names may not be the headlines of the news, nor their weary faces captured by cameras, but Kuwait knows them intimately. Its security and stability are built upon their steadfast shoulders. This Eid, their presence shines brightly, and their esteem in our hearts grows even stronger, even as they remain hidden behind the veil of obscurity. May Allah accept your good deeds, Eid Mubarak, and may your deeds be filled with joy.
The war has entered a far more dangerous phase. What began as a confrontation with Iran has now crossed a critical threshold into the heart of the Gulf's energy system. The targeting of Iran's South Pars gas field was not just a military strike, but a strategic provocation, one that shifted the battlefield from military installations to vital civilian infrastructure. And the response was immediate. Iranian missiles struck Ras Laffan in Qatar, the world's largest LNG export hub, alongside oil facilities in Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and now ports in Kuwait. This is no longer a contained conflict, but an escalation with global consequences. With the Strait of Hormuz nearly closed, through which 1/5 of the world's oil flows, energy markets are in shock. Prices have surged, supply chains are disrupted, and the global economy is now directly exposed. But here is the critical question. Is this escalation accidental or engineered? In the Gulf, the answer is increasingly clear. There is a growing belief that targeting strategic energy infrastructure is a deliberate attempt to drag the region into a wider war, one the Gulf states did not choose and do not want. Yet restraint does not mean vulnerability. The Gulf is drawing a firm line. Energy security is a red line, and patience is not unlimited. Today, a new Gulf doctrine is taking shape, one that balances diplomatic neutrality with military preparedness, a strategy rooted in international law but backed by the full right to self-defense. The message from Riyadh is unmistakable. A unified front, Arab, regional, and international, is forming. Legal frameworks are being activated and violations are being documented. Article 51 of the UN Charter is now on the table. This is no longer just diplomacy, this is positioning. Because if these red lines continue to be crossed systematically and repeatedly, the Gulf will not remain on the sidelines, and that would mark a turning point. not just in this war, but in the future of the Middle East itself.
أخاطبكم في هذه الليلة بصفتي أبا وقائدا ومسؤولا أمام الله تعالى ثم أمامكم عن أمن دولة الكويت وآمانها في فترة تشهد فيها المنطقة تطورات متسارعة وتوترات متزايدة وتصعيدا غير مسبوق ينجم عنها تداعيات تستوجب من الجميع أعلى درجات الوعي واليقظة والثقة. فالوعي بما يجري حولنا لم يعد خيارا بل ضرورة وطنية تمكننا من قراءة التطورات بدقة وفهم.
تؤكد وزارة الكهرباء والماء والطاقة المتجددة بأن عمليات توليد الطاقة الكهربائية وتحلية المياه تسير وفق الخطط التشغيلية المعتادة، وتؤكد الوزارة على جاهزيتها التامة للتعامل مع أي طارئ من خلال خطط متكاملة تتضمن الإجراءات الواجب اتباعها لاستمرارية الكهرباء والماء. وتوفر لدى الوزارة كفاءات وطنية مؤهلة وعلى أعلى درجات الاستعداد لتفعيل هذه الخطط متى ما دعت الحاجة. والمخزون الاستراتيجي من المياه العذبة في البلاد في ازدياد، إلى جانب توفر مخزون من المياه الجوفية، مما يعزز قدرة المنظومة الوطنية على الصمود والتعامل مع مختلف الظروف.
And now to understand this widening gap between intelligence and political decision-making and what it means for the future of the war, we are joined by Dr. Nabil Mikhail, Professor of Political Science at George Washington University. Good afternoon, Doctor. Can you hear me?
I can hear you well. At the very beginning, I would like to extend my congratulations to all the world on the occasion of the occurrence of Eid al-Fitr. May the Lord God bless Kuwait and bless the whole world and create all the good conditions for the world, peace, prosperity, justice on this feast.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for your kind wishes. Let's start with the first inquiry. The Secretary of Defense declared that today will be the most intense since the start of the conflict. Given the threat, what could fundamentally change in the nature of this target? Are we facing military surprises that go beyond conventional bombing to attempts to cripple command centers or seize strategic islands like Kharj Island?
Good question. The Secretary of War, actually, not the Secretary of Defense, Peter Hexes, has been making many statements articulating more or less a United States military plan against Iran. However, there is a new contour now, a major shift, which is the strategic focus on ending the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. It could coincide with another operation capturing the oil-rich Kharg Island. I do not know the plans because, of course, there is a great deal of secrecy in these war machinations. But from what President Trump said, and let us stick to what he uttered, the intention now is to free the Strait of Hormuz from any control by Iran. This will require, of course, the use of military force. Hexes himself said that the United States military actions were able to incapacitate the Iranian Navy boats that could fire missiles against oil tankers. So that component also will be figured out in the military plan. But I believe it could be a very minimalist military operation whereby just Iran could pull out or withdraw without any further damage to its military forces. And there are a couple of military ships, whether from Britain, from the Arab Gulf countries, from the United States, who are safeguarding the passage of maritime trade. It could be that simple, and it could be very complicated.
Like you said, Doctor, it could be simple or very complicated, and the Pentagon has requested a massive additional budget of 200 billion US dollars to replenish its ammunition stockpiles, despite Washington's claim of destroying most of the targets. Doesn't this figure constitute conclusive evidence that Washington is preparing for an open-ended and protracted war of attrition, contrary to what President Trump promises to end things quickly and at minimal costs?
For one, this is a very unpopular demand because many Americans will be resentful of the higher cost of the war. And already President Trump has requested a defense budget totaling $1.5 trillion for the fiscal year 2026-2027. So that's really an exorbitant amount of money to be spent on war. But I think the Pentagon aims, as you said, to replenish or to resupply the stock of weapons. So I believe the Pentagon is using the war against Iran to pile up weapons, whereby it could be used in future wars. Not all of these weapons worth, quote unquote, $200 billion will be applied in the fight now against Iran. It's a long-term plan. The Pentagon will buy these weapons from corporations. America also will sell them to other countries. And then the stockpile will be sufficient for a longer period of time. So it is basically a question of money, numbers, and timing.
Thank you for your elaborate answer, Doctor. The Secretary of War identified 4 main objectives ranging from destroying missile launchers to preventing nuclear weapons. Does the inclusion of preventing nuclear weapons as a military objective here mean that the bombing aims to completely destroy the program, or is it merely a political pretext to open the door to an undeclared objective? This seems to contradict Washington's previous demands for regime change.
As the war approaches its 3rd week, it is obvious to everyone and any layman that the nuclear weapons plan or strategy is not found in Iran's war calculations because they have been able to fire missiles in different directions at different targets. So this is now the focal point. America wants to neutralize the missile capability of the Iranians, which actually they have acquired from many sources, the North Koreans, the Chinese, the Pakistanis, and perhaps even the diaspora of Iranians. So the fact that, like say, the Arab countries received hits by the Iranians, that should establish any deterrence doctrine in the future and in the near future to basically neutralize Iran from being able to threaten its neighbors. So I think now if the war story is told, I believe that the missiles will be the headline, the war against the missiles, because President Trump does not want Israel to hit Iran's oil and energy infrastructure, since such an act could worsen the energy needs of the whole globe. So it is the war over the missiles, and the United States is hoping that this could spur basically positive changes inside the Iranian society and state. Iran should not be aggressive. Iran should open up its system. Iran should allow a degree of opposition. But this is a huge task, and perhaps the reverse could happen. Iran could harden its line and become more repressive, become more aggressive. So it could be, like, say, a middle war, a mid-war, an incomplete war. So Iran will stick with the foreign policy orientations of many American administrations for a long time.
Now, as you mentioned about the U.S.'s hope, even though the U.S. hopes of such thing, we observed the sharp polarization in the House Intelligence Committee hearing, while the Republicans cling to the narrative that the war was a necessary preemptive strike to prevent Iran from crossing the nuclear threshold, Democrats surprised many by questioning the existence of any intelligence assessment proving an imminent threat before the start of operations. Given this contradiction, do you believe the administration exaggerated the threat to justify engaging in open-ended warfare, or did the element of surprise President Trump spoke of necessitates this secrecy even from the intelligence community?
All these scenarios, all these possibilities are accounted for, and when the full story of the war is written, all these factors could be mentioned or could be signed or signaled out as elements in the American strategy against Iran. But really what puzzles me, and this is for me the most important aspect of the conflict, is that the United States now goes to a war after an Israeli recommendation. The fact that the United States is a superpower is that it created an alliance system. When the United States commands something, others must follow. Now we have seen a reversal, a switching of that role. It is Benjamin Netanyahu who decides, and then Donald Trump who listens. So, I mean, the question is, will Israel be able to dictate America's foreign policy actions for the rest of the Trump administration and in the era after Trump? This is what should be scrutinized and studied. Has the United States now been totally obedient to Israel? Because everyone in Washington, everywhere, says the United States' national interest is not the same as the Israeli national interest.
Moving on, but still related to the topic, how do you interpret the significance of Joe Kent's resignation and his shocking confirmation that there was no imminent threat? Do you think President Trump is repeating former President Bush's mistake in Iraq by ignoring intelligence reports confirming the resilience of the Iranian regime, preferring instead to rely on misinformation, so it's called, to satisfy personal ambitions?
It's an important step, and it could be followed by more dissension at the highest echelons of the Trump administration. And that could be personally embarrassing to President Trump. But still, President Trump is in control, and he can really shape the outcome favorable to the United States and to the coalition that it's formed. So I advise him to be a minimalist and just keep the blockade no more.
Very much, Doctor. I think we've had a technical malfunction. We will have a short break and we will be back.
أما الثقة فهي الأساس الذي تقوم عليه قوة الدولة، الثقة بين القيادة والشعب وبمؤسسات الدولة وأجهزتها، وإن وحدتنا الوطنية هي خط الدفاع الأول، وتماسكنا هو الضمان الحقيقي في هذه الأوقات لمواجهة التحديات وتجاوز الأزمات.
قوة الإطفاء العام على استعداد تام وجاهزية للتعامل مع أي طارئ على مدار الساعة من خلال مراكزها البرية والبحرية والمطارات، ونحن نعمل وفق خطط طوارئ متكاملة بتجهيزات متطورة وكوادر مدربة على أعلى مستوى لضمان سرعة الاستجابة وكفاءة التعامل مع مختلف البلاغات سواء كانت خطرة أو بسيطة. وهذا الاستعداد والجاهزية لدينا مستمرة على مدار العام حفاظاً على سلامة الأرواح والممتلكات وتحقيق الأمن المجتمعي.
تؤكد جمعية الهلال الأحمر الكويتي جاهزيتها للاستجابة للطوارئ والكوارث في ظل الأوضاع الجيوسياسية الحاصلة في المنطقة. جمعية الهلال الأحمر الكويتي تعمل من ضمن منظومة إنسانية متكاملة مع مؤسسات دولة الكويت من حيث الاستجابة السريعة وتجهيز المتطوعين من ضمن أفرقة مختلفة للاستجابة للطوارئ في سرعة قصوى. يعد متطوعين جمعية الهلال الأحمر الكويتي من المتطوعين اللي تم تدريبهم مكثفاً في الإسعافات الأولية والاستجابة للكوارث والاستجابة الميدانية. تؤكد جمعية الهلال الأحمر الكويتي جاهزيتها الميدانية ورفع جاهزيتها من حيث الاستجابة للطوارئ في حالات اللي يتم ندائها. بالنسبة للمخزون الاستراتيجي لجمعية الهلال الأحمر الكويتي، فإحنا على أتم الاستعداد للاستجابة في حال النداء من قبل مؤسسات حكومة دولة الكويت.
بتوجيهات مباشرة ومتابعة حثيثة ومتواصلة من قبل مجلس الوزراء ووزيرة الشؤون الاجتماعية الدكتورة أمثال الحويلة، سارعت وزارة الشؤون إلى وضع الخطط المسبقة التي تهدف من خلالها إلى المحافظة على مستويات المخزون الاستراتيجي من السلع المواد الغذائية والاستهلاكية، ولضمان سلاسة وسهولة تدفقها إلى الأسواق التعاونية. قامت وزارة الشؤون ممثلة بقطاع التعاون بتشكيل 6 فرق ميدانية بواقع فريق لكل محافظة، وذلك للمتابعة اليومية للتأكد من كفاية المخزون الاستراتيجي. إن هذا العمل هو ثمرة تنسيق وتخطيط مسبق مع جهات الدولة المختصة التي وضعت لضمان استدامة الأمن الغذائي في مختلف الأوقات، ودامت الكويت بحفظ الله ورعايته.
تؤكد وزارة الكهرباء والماء والطاقة المتجددة بأن عمليات توليد الطاقة الكهربائية وتحلية المياه تسير وفق الخطط التشغيلية المعتادة، وتؤكد الوزارة على جاهزيتها التامة للتعامل مع أي طارئ من خلال خطط متكاملة تتضمن الإجراءات الواجب اتباعها لاستمرارية الكهرباء والماء. وتوفر لدى الوزارة كفاءات وطنية مؤهلة وعلى أعلى درجات الاستعداد لتفعيل هذه الخطط متى ما دعت الحاجة. والمخزون الاستراتيجي من المياه العذبة في البلاد في ازدياد، إلى جانب توفر مخزون من المياه الجوفية، مما يعزز قدرة المنظومة الوطنية على الصمود والتعامل مع مختلف الظروف.
الإدارة العامة للدفاع المدني على استعداد تام وجاهزية عالية، ونعمل وفق خطط مدروسة ومحدثة باستمرار لمواجهة أي طارئ، ونتابع مع الجهات الحكومية كل ما يخص احتياجاتها لضمان استمرار نظام سير العمل وعجلة الإنتاج وسير الحياة الطبيعية، ونقول للجميع سلامتكم أولويتنا.
الأوضاع الراهنة، معكم اليوم وزارة التجارة والصناعة المعنية في ملف الأمن الغذائي. اليوم نطمنكم بأن الوضع التمويني مستقر تماما ولا يوجد أي نقص في المواد الغذائية الأساسية. كذلك حركة الأسواق طبيعية والسلع متوفرة في نقاط البيع والمخازن بشكل منتظم. إنتاج المياه في المصانع المحلية مستمر على مدار الساعة لضمان تلبية احتياجات الجميع. سلاسل الإمداد تعمل بشكل طبيعي وسلس ولا توجد أي عوائق في تدفق السلع إلى الأسواق، كما أن الأسواق المركزية وجميع نقاط البيع تعمل بشكل طبيعي، والجمعيات التعاونية تواصل نشاطها المعتاد دون أي تأثير. ونؤكد على الجاهزية الكاملة لخطط الطوارئ مع استمرار فرق الرقابة التجارية في متابعة الأسواق ميدانيا بشكل يومي لضمان استقرار الأسعار وتوفر السلع الأساسية فيها. لذلك اليوم احنا نطمنكم ونبشركم بأن الأمور طيبة إن شاء الله ويحافظ الله.
Thank you for waiting and welcome back, Dr. Nabil. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine, yeah.
Moving on to our next question, with gasoline prices reaching record highs and public opposition mounting, how will President Trump balance the euphoria of the military campaign with the economic pressures on ordinary Americans? And does the administration have a genuine plans to protect food and energy prices from collapse?
This is why Trump has to end the war soon. Otherwise, there will be a big dissatisfaction on the part of millions of Americans, including also his military base and his political base. MAGA, Make America Great Again. So it's better for Trump to end the war soon. Otherwise, just it will keep dragging on, and the Republicans will lose badly. So this is the biggest challenge in Trump: how to end the war soon.
It is estimated that President Trump is leading the Republican Party towards a political abyss in the 2026 midterms elections. Do you think that the continuation of the war will turn President Trump into a lame duck besieged by a hostile Congress and an angry public in his final 2 years?
Possible. Everything is possible. But also the problem is that the Democratic Party is moving very far to the left. And not too many Americans would like to have a left-wing president or a left-wing Congress. So Trump still has a command in so many things. There is a conservative mood. The war actually is not too long at this moment because President Trump promised a few weeks war, a 4 or 5 week war. So we are still in the, have not reached the 3rd week mark yet. So as I said, just let us do a quick job, a good job, and in the fight, establish a coalition to monitor Iran. Don't be a maximalist. So these are the political means available for Trump to utilize.
Now, Doctor, this is a question that I am wondering myself as well as our dear viewers. Why have the estimates of the war's duration jumped from a few days at the beginning of the conflict to more than 100 days? Do you believe that Washington is actually capable of opening the Strait of Hormuz by military force? Or are we facing a second Gallipoli given the density of Iranian mines and drones?
No. I think the Strait of Hormuz could be opened decisively and with minimum damage because it will be an international coalition. And Iran really cannot stand a big assault. Otherwise, it also will be seen as some nation that is trying to hamper world trade. Iran wants sympathy. And if they agree on a peaceful end of the closure, that will be the wise decision we could make.
Now, to what extent can the arrogance of power and the disregard for the Constitution and advisors weaken U.S. alliances in the Middle East in the long run as the war has entered its 3rd week? Will the countries of the region continue to view the American shield as a guarantee or a security burden?
Again, the public image of the United States is not good in many parts of the world. Like say that applies also to Venezuela when the administration was able to capture Maduro. Some people liked that decision, some people did not like it. But with Israel being a very important factor in American strategy, the United States really suffers from an image fatigue in the Middle East. And this is something the United States should pay attention to, how to turn its image in the whole world and in the Arab world in particular. Try to be neutral in terms of the Arab-Israeli conflict, give the Palestinians the right, do not allow Netanyahu to dictate your foreign policy, should be considered.
Now, moving on, as the U.S. is a major economy in the world, the other major economy in the world is also China. And there is a claim that the road to Beijing passes through Tehran. To what extent does strangling Iran and closing the Strait of Hormuz represent an indirect American means of striking at the nerve center of Chinese development? And can this war be considered, in essence, a chapter in the global struggle for hegemony between Washington and Beijing?
No, China actually has a very narrow focus, a very short-term attitude toward the Gulf now. All they need to do is just to get their oil. They do not want regime change. Frankly, they don't even care about their allies. As long as anyone can supply them with what they need, they will go for them. As a matter of fact, China was one of the biggest supporters of the former regime of the Shah. Why? Because that was during the Cold War and the Soviet rivalry, and the Shah was a resistance of Soviet power. So they welcomed him. No, China is not a factor except just to get its oil.
Thank you so much for this very valuable insight, Doctor. Given the political, Given this political and military impasse, what safe exit strategy is available to President Trump? Will he be forced to accept an ugly deal with Tehran to save face, or will public pressure and economic collapse force an end to this war?
It depends on the attitude of the new Supreme Guide, Mujtaba. If he wants really to open up the system and reach out to the Americans, I'm quite sure that the Trump administration will be receptive to any diplomatic moves on his part.
as our final question, and the war enters its third and hopefully final week. When and how might this confrontation end? What are we waiting for? A hollow victory declared by President Trump before the midterm elections to salvage the American economy, or are we facing a scenario of unchecked chaos that could completely reshape the international order?
No. It's not that, say, negative of a scenario. Since the United States really has weakened the Iranians, I think the fight will end soon, and President Trump does look like long wars, and it will be just a wait-and-see approach what transpires inside Iran. But I think Iran will be contained for a long time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nabil Mikhail, for your input and valuable insight. I hope we have you once again.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and happy Eid to all of you. Bye-bye.
Likewise. Now, the conflict has seen a dangerous shift from military confrontation to targeting the lifelines of energy in the Gulf. What began with a strike on Iran's South Pars gas field has now expanded into a cycle of retaliation hitting some of the world's most critical energy hubs across Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Kuwait. As tensions escalate and the Strait of Hormuz faces near shutdown, the region is no longer asking whether the conflict is widening, but how far it could go and what it means for the Gulf and the world.
Has entered a far more dangerous phase. What began as a confrontation with Iran has now crossed a critical threshold into the heart of the Gulf's energy system. The targeting of Iran's South Pars gas field was not just a military strike, but a strategic provocation, one that shifted the battlefield from military installations to vital civilian infrastructure, and the response was immediate. Iranian missiles struck Ras Laffan in Qatar, the world's largest LNG export hub, alongside oil facilities in Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and now ports in Kuwait. This is no longer a contained conflict, but an escalation with global consequences. With the Strait of Hormuz nearly closed, through which 1/5 of the world's oil flows, energy markets are in shock. Prices have surged, supply chains are disrupted, and the global economy is now directly exposed. But here is the critical question. Is this escalation accidental or engineered? In the Gulf, the answer is increasingly clear. There is a growing belief that targeting strategic energy infrastructure is a deliberate attempt to drag the region into a wider war, one the Gulf states did not choose and do not want. Yet restraint does not mean vulnerability. The Gulf is drawing a firm line. Energy security is a red line, and patience is not unlimited. Today, a new Gulf doctrine is taking shape, one that balances diplomatic neutrality with military preparedness, a strategy rooted in international law but backed by the full right to self-defense. The message from Riyadh is unmistakable. A unified front, Arab, regional, and international, is forming. Legal frameworks are being activated and violations are being documented. Article 51 of the UN Charter is now on the table. This is no longer just diplomacy, this is positioning. Because if these red lines continue to be crossed systematically and repeatedly, the Gulf will not remain on the sidelines, and that would mark a turning point, not just in this war, but in the future of the Middle East itself.
الحرس الوطني قادة وقوات دائما على استعداد وجاهزية تامة لحماية الوطن بالتعاون مع زملاء السلاح في وزارتي الدفاع والداخلية وقوة الإطفاء العام، وتقديم الدعم والإسناد لكافة جهات الدولة، خاصة في أوقات الأزمات والطوارئ. ونسأل الله أن يحفظ وطننا الكويت من كل مكروه في ظل قيادته الرشيدة.
منظومة الاتصالات بالكويت شغالة بكفاءة عالية ولله الحمد، والهيئة العامة للاتصالات وتقنية المعلومات مستعدة لأي طارئ لا قدر الله. وفي ظل التوترات اللي تمر فيها المنطقة فعلنا خطط الطوارئ وعززنا التعاون مع الجهات المعنية عشان نضمن استقرار الخدمات الرقمية وسرعة الاستجابة لأي مستجد. الوضع تحت المتابعة وكل الجهات المختصة على أتم الجاهزية. عسى الله يحفظ الكويت وأهلها.
Now, to unpack the implications of this dangerous escalation and what it means for the Gulf security, energy stability, and the risk of a wider regional war, we are joined by Faisal Mdahka, Editor-in-Chief of Gulf Times. Mr. Mdahka, welcome to our special coverage.
Yeah, thank you for hosting me.
Now, our first question, following the Qatari Foreign Minister's press conference, is there still room for diplomacy to de-escalate the situation, or have we reached a point of no return, a chaotic war that no one can stop? And also, what role can Turkey play in this?
I think, based on my analysis, that the GCC have unified on in a policy that I believe is defense and dialogue, and I think the region has a different philosophy than the GCC has a different philosophy on approaching its citizen, approaching our future, and approaching our with our resilience, of course, rather than Iran. Iran is all about ideology. It's all about creating chaos everywhere. They have displaced 12 million people in Syria. They have created a chaos in Yemen. They have created a chaos in Lebanon, and the same works also with Israel. And I think our leader has the wisdom to analyze the situation and see that Israel and Iran narrative is to push us to be a part of this war. And I believe, each one has a different objective in this war. US has a mislead objective in this war, has an objective, but they are misled by Israel. And Israel has an objective for this war, and Iran has an objective in this war. And I think our leaders, have been in this area for a long time, and they are very wise on analyzing, and they see that, this is not our war. This is not our war. And so that's how I see it, and this is how I have seen, analyzing the press conference with His Excellency Sheikh Mohammed by saying that there is a room for diplomacy. But again, the GCC will not stay. Also has all the right of defending itself and also escalating to the international world. The Security Council have a very important resolution that's been, applied by the GCC countries, and it had a world record of people supporting the GCC against Iran. Iran today is an isolated regime, I will say, acting not as a state, acting as a militia. And I think the GCC, we have a lot of tools that to make them more isolated. But I really believe that yes, there is a room for diplomacy, but it has to be this aggression has to stop immediately. So that's really my outtake on the press conference.
Can I also request your outtake on the Turkish foreign minister, who stated yesterday that the primary cause of the war is the Zionist entity? As you stated earlier, that this war, each country or each regime has their own agenda in this. Why is Iran striking the Gulf instead of the occupied territories if such statement is true?
Well, Iran today is acting as a wounded bear. This is not an act of a state. This is an act of a militia. There is no country who has a conflict with another country starts 7 conflict with another countries. I never seen something like this. Before going to the Turkish. His Excellency Mr. Fadan He gave a story in the press conference by saying when he was in Riyadh, meeting with the Prime Minister of Pakistan, and Arakchi was in the phone, and while he's in the phone, because he's the Turk Fadan, His Excellency, wanted to de-escalate talking with Arakchi. While he's in the phone, Riyadh was being bombed. And he's like, what is this? Are you crazy? What is happening? We are trying to solve this, and your rockets are heading to Riyadh. So this shows you who are we dealing with? Israel has a different objective. Israel has this grand Israel from the river to the sea. We saw yesterday, Netanyahu in his speech, totally disconnected. There is no difference between his ideology and Iranian ideology, to tell you the truth, because they are also live in denial. They are all in disconnection. Both of them are equipped with weapons, and they are just shooting everywhere. If you see bombing, Israel is bombing residential buildings in Lebanon, civilians, in the name of Hezbollah. And again, Iran, by the way, they have said that they have bombed or they have shot Qatar gas facility because Israel, but that's not true, because they have even tried to do the same on the day one by targeting the facility, the LNG facility in Qatar, the industrial city.
So in your opinion, the Iranian regime, as well as the other parties involved in this conflict, they are all somewhat sharing similar military actions or aspirations, one might say? Because like you said, Iran thought about bombing these facilities, oil and gas facilities, since day one, not as an act of retaliation. Something that, let's be honest, something that the Israeli occupation is actually known for.
No, Israel has a different agenda. Those people have no agenda, if you ask me. It's more like a surviving mood. And they have said it very clearly that they have like a will from the Khamenei to activate and bomb everyone. So it means that they have been planning to bomb the GCC since a long time. Unfortunately, that's the reality.
Now, despite the continued Iranian aggression, why are the Gulf states insisting on the legal and international track?
Because, we have seen this, we have seen that war will not take anyone to any place. It will only create damage. And we as the GCC, we don't want to get involved in this. We are thinking of our future, our children, we want to get isolated from this. But again, we are stuck in this region. Right? We are stuck, but this region is part of us, and we're not going to leave this region. So, international.
It is actually a beautiful region, and we have really great neighbors, despite the current aggression that we're going through right now. And it's like you said, the Saudi Arabia is focused on their, I think it's the 2030 vision. Kuwait is also focused on its 2035 vision. And we as a Gulf Cooperation Council countries, like you said, we're focused on the future. Hopefully this crisis will surpass so we can continue focusing on our future and the world as well. After the Riyadh meeting, the Saudi foreign minister stated that energy security is a red line and that political and non-political means will be used to protect it. What are the practical implications of the statement?
Well, I think, as I told you, the GCC are unified. And I wanted to answer the UN thing, right? Because I think these two questions are kind of like related. We have seen what happened to Iraq when how Iraq as a state have collapsed because of what they have done to Kuwait, right? We have seen the role of the UN on implying the Security Council, the seven amendment, right? Which no-fly zone, whatever. I'm telling you, Iran is getting isolated more and more. Just a small example: the train that has been hit yesterday, the main gas goes to China, and China is a kind of close to Iran, right? So today, even what reckless, ruthless act of Iran, I'm not going to call it the Islamic Republic, it's Iran, because there is nothing to do with Islam, those kind of acts, have harmed China. And I also have a funny point that I have. It's not funny, but it's some fact. Two trains were shot because of the act of Israel. Because of the act of Iran. Iran is blaming because we also condemned the Israeli bomb to Iran because we don't think that infrastructure and people should get involved in war, right? And this is also against international law. Even if they are our enemy, right? We will not tolerate a bomb of a gas facility, right? But remember, this act, the Israeli act, caused an American investment in Qatar because this train station, 40% is owned by an American company. So nobody is winning in this war. That's my thing. You know, it's not the U.S. is winning. There is no Iran is winning, and probably people who have this agenda to create it, which I think Israel have created this mess. You know, and America was dragged in. This is my philosophy. You know, this is what I think. Yeah, right? Because today, why do you start a war? Because of oil? Come on, yani, the oil and gas industry. In the region, it's all a joint venture by American companies, international companies, Japanese companies, Korean companies. So who's benefiting from this? Somebody is watching this region, is not happy, as you said, by the 2030. They are not happy why Qatar has the World Cup, why Qatar is developing, why Kuwait has one of the biggest sovereign fund, why Qatar has Al Jazeera, why Qatar has a soft power in terms of diplomacy and acting as somebody is not happy, right? Because think about it, we have Israel fighting 2 years, killing people in Gaza, right? The damage there, the bad image. Israel is supposed to be the democracy of the Middle East. What is Israel now? Nobody want to go close to them. Their prime minister is wanted in the criminal court. And they see Dubai is winning, Abu Dhabi is winning, Kuwait is winning, Qatar is winning, Riyadh is winning. No. We should be winning. So, you know, it's not, some people believe that a fall of one place is a race for them, which is unfortunate. And this is not our leader doesn't believe this, you know. Despite what Iran have done, we gave Iran to Kuwait, to Saudi, to the region. Our leaders gave a second chance to Iran. It's like, let's start again. We're gonna be neighbors for hundreds of years. You're not gonna leave, and we're not gonna leave. Let's start a new way of living together. Qatar have stopped the 12-day war, which saved Iranian life. What did we get? Getting a rocket missile to our facility. Our facility, Qatar has been known one of the biggest donator of Islamic countries, poor people all around the world, Gaza, Palestine, name it, Arab countries, Muslim countries, I don't want to mention it. today you are bombing our facility and gas because this. Why? يعني the most people who's going to be harmed, the Muslim people, right? Think about it, the Muslim people. So it's really a mess, and I hope seriously that this craziness should stop, right? Because it's not helping anybody.
Everyone is sharing the same hope. Faisal Mdlahka, editor-in-chief of Gulf Times. Everyone in the Gulf, not just in the Gulf actually, everyone around the world is hoping that this crisis dissipates and peace would prevail once again. Thank you so much for your valuable insight, and thank you for your time.
Pleasure, thank you.
وجاهزية عالية ونعمل وفق خطط مدروسة ومحدثة باستمرار لمواجهة أي طارئ، ونتابع مع الجهات الحكومية كل ما يخص احتياجاتها لضمان استمرار نظام سير العمل وعجلة الإنتاج وسير الحياة الطبيعية، ونقول للجميع سلامتكم أولويتنا.
Dear viewers, as regional tensions continue to evolve, the role of technology, particularly artificial intelligence, has become increasingly central in shaping modern conflicts. Today's challenges extend beyond the battlefield, reaching into the digital space, where information, perception, and public awareness are constantly being influenced. In Kuwait, national institutions are closely monitoring the digital landscape, working to counter misinformation, enhance cyber awareness, and ensure that accurate information reaches the public in a timely manner. These efforts are essential in maintaining stability, strengthening trust, and safeguarding society against emerging digital threats. To shed more light on how artificial intelligence is influencing the current situation and how communities can stay informed and protected in this rapidly changing environment, we are joined by our studio guest, Salah Al-Najm, Professor of Computational Linguistics and Natural Language Processing at Kuwait University. Welcome. Thank you so much for giving us some of your time. And Eid Mubarak. Can I ask you first, how can big data analytics can be used for proactive crisis management and to prevent the spread of misinformation and rumors?
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Just the correction, Salah Al-Najm.
Al-Najm.
Yes, please. Thank
Al-Najm.
you. First of all, I'm thankful for having me in this interview. May God save Kuwait, its Emir, its people, and everyone who lives on its land. When we talk about AI and the role of AI in detection, rumors, detection, misinformation, disinformation, we are talking about science, technology, and political aspects. So now we hear the term political data science, which is a merge between data science and politics. So politics is not just political analysis alone anymore. Now we use technology to support the political decision, to support the political analysis. And here we see that the technology, and mainly AI and natural language processing and big data analytics, can play a useful role in allowing governments to check for specific trends in the community or during specific events. So what is trending now during a period of, let us say, war or any economic or social events? Who is leading the trend? Who is leading the narratives? How we can benefit from the influencers who are participating in this momentum to, let us say, drive this momentum towards what benefits us. Also, according to the reports published by international organizations like the World Economic Forum. World Economic Forum recently, within maybe for around 1 month, they published the Global Risk Report, which is a report talking about the risks that impact the economies in the world. Misinformation and disinformation was risk number 2 in the near term or the short term, which is 2 years, among 33 risks. So it's a huge risk. According to the report, on the long term, which is 10 years, misinformation and disinformation is the 4th risk. So we have to be careful that misinformation, disinformation can affect the society, can derive more chaos on social media, which also affect people, affect their perception of the news, the political decision.
This is exactly why me and our colleagues here at Kuwait Television, we always insist on telling people to not spread misinformation, because during these times specifically, it really is a matter of life and death.
Yes, yes, exactly. And if I ask you, what is the best place to spread rumors and misinformation? What is your answer?
During these times, it's social media.
Great, great. Social media. Okay. Social media is everywhere and with everyone. So WhatsApp is a kind of social media. X is a social media application. Instagram, other tools and platforms are being used heavily by people to spread information, to spread videos, photos. But should I believe any photo I find on the social media or any video I see on the social media? There are specific tools that can be used to verify if this video is real or if it is fake. So I think here we need to teach people, give them awareness how to verify if a piece of news, a post, a video, or an image is real or fake. Okay? Because according to my experience, and with the use of AI and with the use of big data analytics, many of the trends that we identify are based on fake videos or fake images and sometimes fake posts. So a fake post spreads as a piece of news, trusted news, and this also affects the way we handle it. And when we talk about how to handle these kinds of activities, we talk about proactive crisis management. There are 2 ways to deal with a crisis. Either to deal with it in a reactive manner or a proactive manner. Proactive manner means that you deal with it before the impact spreads, before the impact becomes non-curable. Okay. The reactive is once the disaster happens, I deal with the impact of the disaster. Okay.
But it is also possible to still mitigate as like, even if it was a reactive response, yes, it is still possible to have less repercussions.
Yes,
and it doesn't have to be always proactive.
Yes, yes. When you deal with these kinds of disasters proactively, this means that you can identify and detect the risk or the disaster before it happens, because there are signs, there are patterns. If you recognize specific patterns, if you identify specific anomalies, you can say that there is a high probability that a disaster will happen. And here you become proactive. Yeah. And this is what we talk about when we say proactive crisis management on social media. There are tools, there are technologies, which gives you the insights, the flags, the patterns that tells you that, okay, now you need to move before this route of disaster becomes a real disaster. Yes.
Building up on that, how can the government improve communication strategies on social media, which is a double-edged sword, to enhance public engagement and build trust?
Yes. we need to use social media as a kind of enabler for governments, because the social media is not just a tool to spread news or spread some kinds of notifications to people. Social media is based on interactivity. So accounts, social media accounts used by governmental agencies should be interactive with people. They need to respond to their questions. Not all of their questions, not all of their comments, but
appease their questions,
yeah,
appease the mind.
Yes, yes, because you know, if you deal with people on social media, if you become proactive in answering questions or answering concerns, these concerns will not grow to become a disaster. Okay, so here we are also talk about the AI tools, the big data tools, the natural language management, natural language processing tools like sentiment analysis. We use tools to analyze the sentiment of people about their sentiment regarding specific events, policies. So I can understand the public sentiment within a specific time range so that I can predict that this will create a disaster or not. Also, I need to understand how people think about their political attitude regarding specific events. Also, this can be understood from social media analysis. So AI, and mainly through using generative AI, using AI agents, we can create these kinds of applications which work with social media, with the news spread on the web, also with the videos, with the photos, so that we can tell the people that this is a fake piece of news, this is a fake video, this is a fake photo.
But actually, this is a good point, because I want to build up on that with my next questions. We've seen viral posts about the attacks and disruptions that happened in Kuwait and in the Gulf region. How can we determine whether these are organic rumors or a part of a coordinated digital operation? Because warfare is not only with the physical munitions, it is actually also digital in this time and age.
Yes, there are two ways to identify and deal with these kinds of news or media pieces. When we talk about dealing with fake videos or fake photos or text which is talking about something unreal, organization-wise or organizational-wise, like governments and agencies, there are some advanced tools that can be used to utilize AI, big data analytics, to understand those rumors, those misinformation pieces of news. But this is maybe not our context here. But for the public, how they can judge that this video is real or not real, or this photo is real or not real, or this post contains text which I should believe or I should not believe. For videos, you know the deep fake technology now, which allows you to create a video which is faked and can be seen as a real video. There are tools available you can use to verify the video. For example, if you get or see any kind of post which contains a video, and you want to verify that the video in this post is real or not, you can go to a tool like Deepware, for example. Deepware is one of the tools available. You copy the URL of the post, for example, you paste it, or you upload the video, and Deepware, and there are other similar applications, not just Deepware, they use AI to check for patterns, to check for anomalies in the frames of that video, to check if there are any kind of biological evidences that telling that there is something fake. They also focus on lip sync to see, is this person talking actually, or is this an avatar created by generative AI, for example, or if the character is talking in a way, but the sound is synchronized in a different way. This is for videos. And these types of applications like Deepware, they can give you a kind of probabilistic analysis that this video is, there is a high probability that this video is fake. Okay. Also, for photos, there are other tools like AI Light. AI Light is also an image detector which checks for also anomalies in the pixels, checks for specific patterns in the light, in the metadata of the picture or the image to give you a probability index that this image is fake, or there is a high probability that this image is fake. For text, like a post, I want to check this piece of news or this post is talking about a subject. I want to know, is this subject genuine? Is it real? So there are ways. The simplest of is using Grok, for example. Copy the content of the piece of news to Grok, or ask Grok directly, is this real? If you are using X.
Here's the thing: not everyone. Like I'm thinking, for example, about my parents, our parents, our elderly loved ones. They're just as susceptible to these kind of generated media as much as children, for example. But children, to some extent, are a little bit more tech savvy, and they're not going to be as much. Rigorous when it comes to watching the news, for example. So what are possible simple methods or mental cognitive tools that we can, for example, share with our loved ones who are not so tech savvy, so they can keep themselves safe? For example, for me, is if it doesn't come from official sources, then it's most probably fake. If it's not, probably, or if it wasn't mentioned, if an official source didn't respond in regards to these images, then it is most probably fake. Do you have any other indications that could be possible?
Yes, there are simpler tools that can be used. For example, the simplest one is to reverse search. If there is a picture or an image that you think that this is not real, you can search for it in Google. If you could find it in a specific date, which is previous date, this means that this is not a recent picture. Okay, this is simple. You can check for who reposted this piece of news. If there is any flag on X platform, for example, they use some kind of crowd verification. They put flags also on the piece of news that this is a kind of misinformation. So check for these flags. As I mentioned, on X, ask Grok, which is simple. Ask Grok who posted this at the first time. Is the account who posted this news? Is it verified? What people are talking about this, or what people said about this piece of news? Is this piece of news there is high probability that this is a fake news or not fake news? Grok can give you a simple indicator, and it doesn't need any kind of using tools. Grok is built in within X platform, for example. So
basically use AI tools to figure out indications of other AI-generated
media. Because Grok is based on a large language model AI, which uses artificial intelligence to check for patterns, to check for the language used. So Grok is one of them, okay? And also, as you mentioned, there is the common sense. Is this piece of news supported by evidences from official sources? Search. Within the social media platform or within the web, get the text, put the text, and check. Did Kona talk about it? Did the official news channel talk about it? Yes. Did they deny it? Is there any kind of information that saying that this is a fake piece of news? So this is a common sense, okay? So you can search for these kinds of information even without using specific platforms or applications or even asking Grok. Yes.
I I would like to excuse ourselves from the conversation regarding AI tools and fake news and all of that. And I want to dabble into global energy markets, and they are facing increasing pressure amid ongoing regional tensions, particularly in the Gulf, a region that plays a critical role in supplying oil and gas to the world. Rising prices, supply concerns, and risk to key shipping routes, especially the Strait of Hormuz, are all contributing to heightened uncertainty in energy markets. To shed more light on these developments and what they mean for global energy security, we take a break from our studio guest, and we are joined on the phone by Dr. Carol Nakhla, Chief Executive Officer of Crystal Energy and Secretary General of the Arab Energy Forum. Dr. Nakhla, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. Following recent attacks targeting energy-related sites across the Gulf, including Kuwait, Qatar, the UAE, and Saudi Arabia, how serious is the risk to regional energy infrastructure, and to what extent can the global economy absorb the cost of such disruptions? What factors determine its resilience?
Well, it's definitely not a risk anymore, because we have seen that the Iranians have actually attacked some energy infrastructure across the region, around all its neighbors sharing the Gulf area. So it's not anymore a risk, it's a fact, but of course it can get worse. Iran can further escalate its attacks. And that means that the more they attack the energy infrastructure, the more they are pushing the region into the worst case scenario, whereby the Gulf countries who have been so far defending themselves may be pushed to a point where defense is not anymore, the answer is not enough. And at some point they want to take a more protective measures by attacking or retaliating against Iran to put an end to these kind of unfair attacks on players that had nothing to do with this war to start with. So the risk is there of further escalation. The damage has been done already. Of course, it can get even worse. And the longer the whole situation continues with more escalation in terms of attacks, the worse the situation is going to be on oil prices from a consumer's perspective, and therefore on the global economy, because oil people don't realize that oil is not just what you put, or gasoline or diesel, what you put in your cars for transport. It has a much bigger footprint across the economy. It's a feedstock for many things we use on a day-to-day basis. So when the cost of that important commodity increases, we're going to feel it across the economy with inflationary pressure, which can drag down economic growth just at a time when the economy barely had the time to recover from several previous shocks in the last few years, starting with COVID, to supply chain, to the invasion of Ukraine, etc. So it's making a bad situation worse.
And now, how do you interpret the impact of the current military escalation on the stability of oil markets, especially with the near complete halt of shipping in the Strait of Hormuz?
Let me distinguish between the two things, and I mean the military attacks on energy facilities. We saw how oil, and not only oil, by the way, even more so gas. So I think for gas, it was more of a bigger shock. That when Israel attacked the South Pars field in Iran, Iran retaliated by attacking the Ras Laffan LNG complex in Qatar, which is the biggest LNG processing facility in the world, responsible for almost a fifth of the total capacity of LNG produced in the world. So that sent a shockwave across gas markets, and we saw a massive spike. And the same thing we also see oil markets being more nervous, and also we saw an increase in price because many were concerned that, oh my goodness, is this the next stage? However, since then we have heard statements from the White House and elsewhere that energy infrastructure is not going to be attacked for the time being, and that by itself reduced the pressure on prices. So we saw some corrections in gas prices and oil prices. In terms of, again, going forward for the shipping sector, it all depends on whether tankers can sail through the Strait of Hormuz and feeling safe without endangering the ship or its crew. So this is a big question mark, and I don't think the industry, the shipping industry, has reached a point where they feel they can sail through with this kind of certainty that they are not going to be subject to attack. It is something that is a priority today for the Americans and whoever is supporting them in that part of the world. But at the moment, it has definitely, the shipping industry has reached almost a halt across the Strait of Hormuz, and that by itself is adding to the disruption that we are seeing in oil and gas markets.
Now, if the escalation continues, are we facing a genuine supply shortage, or does the market still possess sufficient resilience to absorb the shock? And we're not just talking about oil, we're talking about oil and, like you said, gas and the shipping costs. For example, something as simple as buying fresh flowers has taken a toll of the current conflict, and one famous shop has actually stated the rise in prices is due to the fact that to the shipping difficulties that we're going through right now.
But look, anything that has to do with the Middle East, especially when it comes to energy, is never going to stay in the Middle East. It's going to shape the global economy everywhere. Of course, Middle Eastern countries are feeling the impact, severe impact in terms of security, in terms of risk perception, just at a time where they were trying to attract massive investment in the economy. And also they rely on the Strait of Hormuz, not just to send their oil and gas abroad, but also to import all sorts of goods and even some things like into their economy that the economy needs, from food to other products. But it's also being felt across the world. I'm thinking here about the poor countries in Asia, Southeast Asia, which rely heavily on imports for oil and gas, and now they have to face much higher prices. So either they have to pay a huge bill for their imports, or they have to resort to some drastic measures, such as forcing their population to consume less energy. And that's what we are seeing today. Some countries are asking their people to work from home so that they reduce the demand for transport and therefore for fuel. Also here in Europe, I can see prices increasing, but of course there is a purchasing power is much higher here than you have in poorer countries. But I'm thinking about other countries which don't have the same purchasing power. So it is affecting everyone everywhere. That said, I have to say something that you don't often hear about today. I don't think it is as bad as being portrayed. And I'm saying this simply because when I look at the scale of the crisis in the Middle East, I mean, affecting everyone across the region, not just one or two countries, and where prices are, and we have seen much higher prices in the past, I don't think that the market is necessarily in a big state of panic. I think the concept of crisis is being a bit exaggerated, but if I strip out the emotions and the geopolitical risk, I think the global economy is better prepared to deal with the crisis than it was only a few years ago. So that's what keeps me a bit, calmer and not really panicking and saying that's it, it's the end of the world, it's Armageddon in oil and gas market. It's not pleasant, but the market is telling me that actually we can handle that up to a certain point. So we're not really yet in the worst case scenario.
Well, with reports of production buildup and Iraq announcing output cuts due to shortage constraints, combined with difficulties in exports amid the near closure of the Strait of Hormuz, how do you interpret the impact of these developments on the global energy markets? I would also like to add, do you think that perhaps the reaction that we're going through right now has somewhat been affected by the previous corona pandemic that we dealt with? Because of course the corona pandemic did also have its own economic repercussions. So this is another crisis that the world is dealing with right now after almost 6 years.
Since Corona, I've been hesitating about wishing myself a good year or calm year every year. Because really, if you look at since 2020, I call it a crisis souffle, because you have one major shock, the biggest, crisis, and I'm glad that you mentioned that. Then add on top of that the inflation costs and the supply chain challenges. Add on top of that the war in Ukraine, and that caused massive disruptions in oil and gas market. Then we saw the Hamas-Israel war in October 2 years ago, then the attacks on that Iran and Israel traded last year, and then the Americans' attack on Iranian nuclear facility, and then now you have this. My goodness, we are really, really exhausted, and we wonder what's coming next. But taking all this into consideration, you understand why the fear is today in terms of impact of what's happening in the Middle East and higher prices for energy. And energy is very important for every single economy around the world. You don't have to be a producer to say, yes, it's important for my economy, as we have in the Middle East. Everybody is concerned about energy prices. So you put this scenario today, what is happening, this reality, on top of all the crises and difficulties that we have faced over the last 6 years, then you realize that actually the impact can be bigger because of the structural problems that we had over the last few years. But hopefully it all rests on the war, how long it's going to last, and I remain hopeful that I do hope that it does not drag on much longer than maybe a couple of weeks, which I think, well, that's what the Americans had in mind when they started with President Trump referring to 4 to 5 weeks. So I really hope that we don't see this war dragging on for months, and definitely not for years, because that's where you're going to see the impact on the global economy much more visible.
Well, based on predictions, or let's say predictions that the war might be dragged on longer, Iran has threatened to push prices to record levels. Do you believe that a price of $200 per barrel is a realistic scenario or a political pressure tactic?
I mean, definitely Iran has to talk about that because that is their strongest card. I think that gives the Iranian a stronger influence than just what they are doing on a military basis. But, people talk about $200. We've been there before, but people don't realize that actually when you look at real values, so when you adjust for inflation, then actually we saw these levels before. It's not something new if we hit that level. But even in that worst case scenario, assume we hit 200. The question is not whether we just hit that point. The question is what happened if we get closer to that point and how long we're going to stay in that level. Because it would be a mistake to believe that the world is static. There is something that we call demand destruction. And demand destruction can have a very powerful impact on prices, not just immediately, but also for the longer term. So at the end, the producers themselves end up being the biggest losers in the longer term, because once you lose that demand, it's not going to come back. And that's why if you look at oil importance in the global economy, and especially you look at what we call oil intensity, how much oil we use to produce 1 unit of gross domestic product or economic output, today we are using half of what we used to use in the 70s. So we are able to produce more economic growth with less oil than we were in the 70s. And that happened after a shock. So every shock results into structural changes in the market on the demand. And all of it does actually is accelerating the move away from oil. So if Iran feels it's going to win by pushing prices to 200, they may succeed. I'm not ruling anything out, but I think they will be among the biggest losers going forward because their economy really depends on oil revenues. And the less people want to use their oil in the longer term, the more they will suffer under current economic situation.
So as much as they use the oil prices as leverage, as much as ironically they're pushing towards countries finally moving towards carbon neutrality. European statements such as those from Kaja Kallas have warned of a growing fertilizer crisis now moving from oil. How is rising energy prices directly linked to the global food crisis?
I mean, you have to think about oil and gas, whether directly or indirectly, they enter into every aspect of our economy, and the production of fertilizers that you need for to grow your crops for agriculture, they do come from oil and gas primarily. And also there is, even if they don't come from the sector directly or indirectly, think about the machines that you need to run to produce, for example, corn or whatever you need in agriculture. So directly or indirectly, oil and gas enters into every single sector of our economy, let alone agricultural sector. And that agriculture is very important because it's really a basic sector for everyone around the world. It's not a luxury. It's not that you decide to eat today or not to eat tomorrow. Like travel, for example, you can cut down on your travel, but you don't really cut down on eating. And therefore, that is a very big worry for international organizations, for governments around the world, because that is going to push up the cost of living, and the impact will be most felt by the poorer people because they spend a big chunk of their income on energy and on food purchases. So this is how the link comes from oil and gas to other sectors in the economy, and primarily agriculture.
Thank you so much, Dr. Carol Nakhla, Chief Executive Officer of Crystal Energy and Secretary General of the Arab Energy Forum. Your insight and input has been valuable.
Thank you very much for having me. All the best.
Now, as regional tensions linked to the current crisis, we move back into our studio guest, Mr. Salah. And I wanted to ask, in real terms, how can misinformation during this period directly impact public behavior and security on the ground? Because since the beginning of the crisis, or in any crisis actually, people, as soon as they hear any sort of information, they have that little, I want to get the first scoop of information. What does that impact?
Yes, when we talk about misinformation and disinformation, we talk about misinformation, disinformation spread intentionally, which is a kind of weapon that can be used by other powers. So yes, misinformation or rumors can be used to put some pressure on the public to act in a specific way. For example, I want to create chaos here in the society. Okay, so I put some piece of information, some videos, some rumors that there is a shortage in food. There is an issue in electricity. Or that there is a disastrous event in one of the facilities or main facilities in Kuwait. So people will react. How they will react? It's a kind of chain reaction. Okay.
It's a snowball.
Yeah, snowball. Yes. I repost my friends repost and comment or something like this. It will create a narrative, and the narrative will grow to create a trend.
And then actions.
Yes, people, and the trend the trend is followed by actions. So we need to be careful as governments, as media outlets, to kill the rumor, to kill the piece of misinformation as soon as we can. Because if the rumor spreads for a longer time, it becomes a fact. Okay? Even if we deny later, the impact of denying later will not be useful for us, because the rumor became a kind of a factual thing that we need to deal with. So yes, rumors, misinformation can affect the behavior of people, can also create a kind of catalyst for others to create more misinformation piece of content. So you know that if I say something, after an hour, this piece of information I provided will be changed to a larger or a wider narrative. Okay, then this will grow to a wider narrative. And then when we reach the trend stage, in this case, we may find ourselves with a disaster. And this is why we talked at the beginning about proactive crisis management. Why should we monitor social media to check if there are specific topics that are appearing on the landscape? Here we talk about something called topic extraction, using AI and natural language processing. We use specific tools, even with some organizations here in Kuwait, to detect topics. What are the topics that derive the narratives? What is the sentiment deriving the narrative? So that we can get the insights, we can get the patterns that allow us to take an immediate decision or maybe to give a specific message. Sometimes the cure will be within our range. We provide the fact. Providing the fact will kill this kind of misinformation. So at least if we could provide the facts in a timely manner, and with the use of AI detection tools, with AI agents, with natural language processing, big data analytics tools, we can deal with these kinds of misinformation and disinformation activities in a timely manner to stop the disaster from becoming, or stop the anomaly in the data or the misinformation in the data to become a narrative, then becoming a trend, then becoming a disaster.
A very more specific one we can use as an example is obviously food security during the crisis. The first thing that people are afraid of, alongside the fact that the Strait of Hormuz is closed and the crisis is escalating, not de-escalating, people are always worried about how much food they will be able to keep, good, healthy food. And as soon as these kind of rumors spread of people showing co-op and supermarkets empty of a product, even though it was just because it was during the reloading or deloading of these things. Yes, sadly, people literally just created unnecessary panic. Thus, the governments came and reassured us of the structural intact strategic stockpile of food that we have. We have enough poultry, we have enough water, we have enough sugar, we have enough flour, we have enough of everything. Thankfully, we are in a country that feeds and nurtures the poor as much as it does its own citizens and residents.
Exactly, and this is where the interactivity in the accounts of governmental organizations. If the accounts of social media, if the social media accounts used by the governmental organizations are interactive and they deal directly with people, in this case, if someone talks about a specific piece of news or a specific rumor, and he or she mentions the account of a specific governmental organization, interactivity means that since that user mentioned us with a piece of information which is not real, I directly answer this guy. If I answer this guy or this lady and tell him
I killed the rumor.
Yeah, this is not true.
There's no, yes, exactly.
And this is not true because 1, 2, 3, 4. It will kill the rumor directly. So this is why we talk about interaction rate. This is an index used in social media analytics. Interaction rate. The accounts of the social media accounts of the governmental organizations should have a high interaction rate, and especially in these times, because interaction means that I listen, I react, I give you the information that you need to ignore this misinformation and disinformation piece of news.
Well, moving on from food security and misinformation and such, but it's still relevant. Today, hybrid warfare is increasingly seen as more of a modern technological war than a purely military one. As I stated earlier, the enemy forces or the other parties are also deploying these kind of tactics regarding hybrid warfare using technology, social media, our own social media against us and such. How is that?
When we talk about warfare, we are not talking about actual weapons. Okay, actual weapons is part of the equation, but now we are talking about cyber attacks, intentional cyber attacks that affect the infrastructure, or affect the sources of information, or affect the governmental services. For example, distributed denial of service attacks. A specific organization or a specific group attacks a specific government to stop their e-services provided to the public, okay, or to stop their website or application from working because they are handling or putting some kind of distributed denial of service attacks on this organization. And this is one of the simplest in terms of warfare, one of the simplest methods used in electronic warfare. And sometimes this is the beginning of the electronic warfare. So this is a way attacks on e-services, on websites.
So
on,
would the beginning be the rumors, or would it be the cyber attacks?
Now we are talking about actual cyber attacks, intentional cyber warfare, cyber attacks.
Yes.
So they make the distribution, the distributed denial of service attacks. The servers stop, the services stop. If a website of a governmental organization stops, this will create chaos, especially if it is used by the public daily or for specific services that they need for their life. So this means that this is a kind of warfare. Another type of warfare is social media and misinformation. And this is more advanced. Denial of service attacks, I'm telling you that this is the simplest, because there are tools that can be used for this, and it's something easily
This
done.
is more advanced because it involves the human psyche.
Yes,
because you're not just attacking.
Using. You are attacking the human mind, and the human mind, or something sometimes it's called the human factor, is the weakest link, because when you attack the human mind, even if you have the strongest countermeasures in terms of cybersecurity, if you attack the human mind, you will bypass all this. Okay, especially when we use something called social engineering. I give you information, or I would deal with you as a human being to convince you that I am someone who is trying to benefit you, or to give you information that you don't know. But in fact, I am planting information which is misinformation and disinformation to be spread by other people. Also, now we are talking about generative AI, and we are talking about agentic AI. Agents work in parallel, and those agents can be used to create social media accounts which appear as humans. So you may face accounts which are pretending to be human accounts, but in fact those are AI agents.
There is actually the theory that the dead internet theory, I think, which is that the internet right now is actually consistent of more bots, AI bots, than real humans.
Thank you. One of the main challenges that are facing social media analysts now is to distinguish between a genuine post and a post created by a bot or an agent, an AI agent. Now with generative AI allows the agent, the AI agent, to create content similar to the way that people are creating. And now there are agents which are programmed to create content, to send comments, and to comment on news, and to comment on other posts, and to interact with other accounts, and give information similar to what people are doing. So now with AI agents, using large language models and generative AI, now we are going beyond the normal bots. Maybe before 5 years, we were talking about bots or botnets that retweet, make likes, spread information, report spams for specific accounts. Now we are going into another dimension. We are using now, or people are using now, AI agents which work in parallel to pretend that they are humans. And this makes detecting those AI agents more difficult than bots.
Much trickier.
Now, if you tell me, is it more difficult to detect AI agent than detecting a bot? I tell you, yes.
Bots are a bit more, I'm not going to say binary, but like AI agents have been anthropomologized. Like they have that human element, sadly.
Yes,
they really do mimic human nature so well. Bots is just
retweeting,
A for B.
And sometimes they create the same repetitive task again and again and again without any kind of change in the content.
Exactly.
But
so
for
you can
AI,
catch,
for AI agents, they
cycle.
change the content. They even respond. For example, if I'm an AI agent, I send a post. Someone asks me a question. I send a reply with a new content. And maybe when I repost this post, I repost with different content using large language models and generative AI. So are we entering the age of AI agents in terms of using AI agents to spread rumors and misinformation? I tell you, emphatic yes.
Well, today we see artificial intelligence being used as a weapon of manipulation and deception through the dissemination of rumors and fake videos that appear genuine with the aim of distorting facts and manipulating minds. How can we avoid such manipulation? We're speaking individually first and foremost, obviously, because the war starts with the individual and thus later on with the government.
Yes. Individually, first of all, we need to use our common sense. Okay. If someone sends me a link on WhatsApp, for example, I have to be careful not to click on any URL or link sent by WhatsApp. At least let us talk about WhatsApp. Because many of the threats now affecting people are the links that sent by social media and mainly by WhatsApp, which are being used to plant spyware, to affect my information or the privacy of my information. So don't click on any link sent to you by a foreigner, by someone you don't know. Even if you receive a link from a legitimate entity, like, for example, I'm working at Kuwait University, a link sent by Kuwait University. And I found this link suspicious. And it's Kuwait University, from Kuwait University number, or even through email, from Kuwait University email address. So I received it even through email, not just WhatsApp. I called the university. I asked the university, did you send this? Sometimes it is a kind of phishing attack. Phishing attack is an attack which uses the weakest link, which is the human mind, using social engineering. I send you an email, or I send you a post which pretends to be an official post or an official email with the logo and everything. And I tell you, okay, please click on this to provide us with more information. Even the banks are telling us not to respond to this kinds of...
the postal service.
The postal service,
I've actually
yes.
been once, I've received a scam email or like a criminal email. It was from my own email address, and it was actually very convincing, very convincing. Yes. I was so shocked that I was like, no, there is something wrong. I need to go online and search it up. And apparently there's something, I don't remember the exact terminology, but apparently these people, these criminals, these digital cyber criminals, they use a specific method to copy the email address that everything looks the same, that you think that you sent it from your own address.
And this is why we use the common sense. When you receive an email, you have to check the header of the email, to check from where this email has been sent. Sometimes it appears like your email, but when you go inside the details of the email sending, you will find some kinds of change in the URL, something like this. So double check that the domain which is used by the link is a legitimate domain. Okay, is it under an SSL certificate, a kind of encryption certificate, which starts with HTTPS? Yes.
If it's asking for unnecessary extra funds.
Yes, if it is asking about funds, if it is asking about entering your bank account details, about a PIN number. And also, this is one of the tools used by criminals during the electronic warfare. So they send these kinds of links. These kinds of,
because harming the country's people, the citizens and residents, it harms their own morale, and thus they feel weaker, and thus it would make it easier for them.
And as I said, using the weakest link, which is the human factor. And also, we need to make sure that we update our devices, our smartphones, our computers to the latest updates of the operating system, because this will give us more security layers. Use specific security applications that are available for mobiles, for Mac OS, for Windows, for any kind of operating system. Use specific applications, programs for keeping your device secure. So So, okay, update your operating system, but use security software. Also, as I mentioned earlier about using those tools to check about if this video is fake or not, if this image is fake or not. There are tools which can search in the metadata of the photo to tell you that this is fake or not. These are all available, and many of them are free. Also use AI. Use ChatGPT, use Claude, use Grok to ask questions about a specific piece of information that you think it is not true. Even if you receive a URL using Google Drive, for example, download this document. Even if it is stored on Google Drive, there is a kind of risk that, yes, there is some kind of hidden cybersecurity threat